everyone, my name is Shalicia Glassford. I am a proud hospitality professional and I started my educational journey over at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant on St. Kitts. I then went over to Switzerland where I studied at the Cesarewitz Colleges and Washington State University, and just recently I completed my last certificate at the Le Roche Marbella, Spain campus. I'm so privileged and honored to have been able to study and work in so many different parts of the world. But one of the greatest joys that I have is to be able to hone that knowledge outside and bring it right here to my island, Nevis. Being able to impact my knowledge, my expertise, and my education to my peers and my colleagues every day makes me feel very proud that I'm really contributing to our tourism product here on Nevis. Looking ahead, I see the future of Nevis and the future of my career evolving together in perfect harmony. I envision Nevis becoming a true luxury destination, and I believe that I would be able to advance Nevis together in that direction. There are so many different rewards that I gain every single day from building my life here on Nevis and my career here on Nevis. First of all, I have an opportunity every day to wake up passionately to do something that I love. Not only do I get to do something that I love, but I get to do that with other Nevisians, and we both love it together as we all try to serve our guests in the best way possible to help to advance our tourism product.
Hi, my name is Anthony Gager. I'm the Operations Manager at Trident Trust Nevis, formerly known as Morningstar Holdings, and I traveled abroad to study at the University of New Haven in Connecticut, where I attained my bachelor's degree in business management. I was always inspired by local business people, whether they were entrepreneurs, whether they were a part of an established company and they rise through the ranks of that company. And I always paid attention to their success over time. And I always challenged myself and always reminded myself that that could be me one day. Unique opportunities that exist in Nevis that may actually surprise others, I believe, are the amount of leadership opportunities that exist. Leadership often also comes in the form of taking initiative, offering solutions, and executing ideas within your community or within the company that you work for. We must remind ourselves that things are great now, but we're definitely going to get older at some point in time. So are your current habits contributing to the life you wish to live that would put you in a position to look after your family that you may have one day, or to look after your parents when that time comes? You don't need to leave Nevis to live meaningfully. You just need vision, discipline, and a willingness to adapt and grow.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Slack-Clark. I completed my primary and secondary level education right here on the island of Nevis. I attained my Bachelor's of Laws degree from the University of the West Indies in Bridgetown, Barbados, and my legal education certificate, LEC, from the Norman Manley Law School in Kingston, Jamaica. I then obtained a Master of Laws degree from the School of Advanced Study, University of London. In my practice as an attorney at law, I have the opportunity and ability to assist persons with various issues that they may be dealing with, to contribute to the development of a regional jurisprudence, and to feel a sense of fulfillment in seeing a project through from the beginning to completion. As President of the Assembly, there is an undeniable significant impact that my work has on the development of our democracy, the proper functioning of our parliamentary process, and generally how our government and country is run. The best part about building my career here on the island of Nevis is that I get the best of both worlds. So you have your work obligations and you're able to do what you have to do in the presence of all the friends and families you grew up with and that you were surrounded by throughout your life.
Hi, my name is Catherine Seabrooks Wilkinson and I traveled abroad to study education at the University of the Virgin Islands. One of the major challenges that I have faced in trying to establish myself as a leader is youth. I know that some might say when you're young you have a lot to contribute, and with youth come new experiences and new opportunities. But as a young person, there's a fine line between establishing yourself as a young leader and gaining the respect of the persons that you do lead. Being from the island of Nevis, I'm exposed to best of both worlds. How do I balance professional growth and island living? Simple, stay grounded with family as well as community. The most rewarding aspect of building a life and career here on the island of Nevis is being in close proximity to the persons who matter the most. Your parents, your family members, the persons who silently support you, as well as the parents of the students that you interact with, as well as the students that you see on a day-to-day basis. That's the proudest thing for me.
Hello there, my name is Shaniel C.
Good evening to one and all. Listening to us via VON radio and of course online. We are here at the Pond Hill Community Center for the first of several town hall meetings put on by the CCM-led Nevis Island administration. Let me acknowledge to my immediate left, Premier the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley. A little further left, Deputy Premier the Honorable Eric Evelyn, and a little further left, the Honorable Spencer Brand. I wish to acknowledge as well in the audience the Honorable Troy Liebert, the Honorable John Nisbet, and of course our special legal advisor, Ms. Helen Lewis. I wish to acknowledge as well the Honorable Michael A. Perkins and all other members sitting here with us this evening. And of course, Special Advisor LaToya Jones. Let me apologize right up front for our late start due to technical difficulties, but we are now ready to go. The format for this evening's town hall is going to be the speakers at the head table giving you a 5-minute presentation, starting with the Honorable Spencer Brand. After which we shall have questions and answers. And I want to ask you at this point to, when that time comes, to please conduct yourself nicely, respectfully with your questions. Now, without further ado, I wish to go straight to our first presenter, who is the Honorable Spencer Brand, to give you a 5 minutes update on his various portfolios. Of course, all cannot be done tonight, but he will give us some update on his various portfolios.
Thank you very much, King Keith Descendant Scarborough. Let me, first of all, congratulate you on your 50th anniversary of, I would say, one of the most prolific, one of the most persistent Calypsonian here on the island of Nevis. I believe you are celebrating. Yes, you can clap for that. Yes, you're correct. Perhaps even in the region, I believe that your consistency and stick-to-itiveness have certainly kept you in good stead over those 50 years. So I want to congratulate you, King, and I certainly wish you all the very best in your future Calypso endeavors. I want to adopt the protocol which you so graciously established, but forgive me to, of course, recognize our Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley, and our Deputy Premier, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, along with all of my other cabinet colleagues. Let me say good evening to all those who are listening and viewing this town hall, coming to you here from the Pond Hill Community Center in St. John's. I've been asked to make a presentation within 5 minutes, and I want to focus my very brief presentation on a few developments that is taking place presently within the constituency of St. John's. I want to, of course, start with some roadworks that is currently taking place in the Brown Pasture Morgan Estate area. The general public would recall that in and around 2015 or 2016, the Nevis Island administration would have erected a water tank in the Morgan estate. And during that construction of that water tank, the road to that tank was severely compromised. And over the years, I know that the residents in this area would have been requesting and asking and lobbying for the Nevis Island administration to have that road constructed. I am happy to report that we are well on our way in ensuring that that road work is completed in very short order. The contractor for that work is, of course, Mr. Egbert Clark, who is making very good progress in terms of getting that work completed. It is a concrete road. We are also upgrading the water infrastructure in that area as well, where the water department would have already gone in and installed a portion of some 4-inch water lines in that area, which is really customary for us whenever we are doing road work. We use the opportunity to upgrade the water infrastructure as well. So I want to highlight that particular project here in Brown Pasture, Morgan Estate area. We are also looking at some drainage work in the St. John's constituency. And I'm happy to report that just recently we would have completed some significant upgrade of drainage work in the Wilkinson Road area in Brownhill. And we are very happy to see that project completed because over the years, the various residents in that area would have been suffering from significant flooding whenever there were heavy rainfall in that area. So I am very pleased to see that we were able to bring some relief to those families in the Wilkinson Road area. Last year, late last year, we would have also completed some drainage work in Bath Village, in the area of Conchell going up to the mud area. And that was a part of the Bath Village Road Enhancement Project. That area as well, we would have seen over the years significant flooding and significant threat to flooding of some homes and some families in that area. So we are also happy to have seen that we were able to complete that drainage project as well. Thank you. We are also looking at some additional drainage work in the St. John's area. In particular, right here in Brown Pasture, we are considering some additional drainage work. We are also considering some significant drainage work as well in the Prospect area. We continue to see that whenever there is heavy rains, there are stagnant water in some areas of Prospect. There are some families who are severely affected by flooding, and we are looking at ensuring that we can bring some relief to those families in those areas. I will move very quickly to some developments in water. And I am very happy to report to the people of St. John's that we are about to enter into an agreement to construct a 400,000 gallon water tank at Morning Star. And that 400,000 gallon water tank will replace an old fiberglass tank that has existed in Morning Star for some time. It has been offline, and we are hoping that we can see commencement of that work very shortly to bring some relief to those folks in Morning Star, in Church Ground, in Brown Hill, all the way over to Cherry Garden, actually all the way over to Bath Village, and if needs be, into Charlestown. So that is a project that we are hoping that we'll be able to bring online very shortly. I am also happy to report that we are continuing with our water drilling exercise, and presently we are at our fourth well site in the Braziers area. You would recall that we would have already put online 2 wells in the Maddens area, which is resulting in some 600 plus thousand gallons of water per day. The site in Bridges is our fourth site. Our third site in the Descents area, we ran into some difficulties, and we took a decision that we will move to Bridges while the jailers sort out the issue in the Descents area. So we are hoping to return to the Descents area once we have completed the exercise in Bridges. They are presently at approximately 250 feet, trying to reach a depth of some 550 feet. And once that is completed, then we will move back to the Descent area. I want to remind our people very quickly that we are in the hurricane season. And I want to use this opportunity to appeal to our folks here on the island of Nevis and those who are listening in the various islands, that based on the prediction that we are seeing, we are expecting that there will be basically an above normal hurricane season. It means that the experts are predicting some 19 named storms. Out of those 19, they are predicting that 9 could become hurricanes. And out of those 9 hurricanes, they are predicting that 4 may turn into major hurricanes. Now, I don't have to tell you the damage and the impact that hurricane can cause on our beautiful island. So I am using this opportunity to appeal to our people to prepare themselves, to try and get your information from credible sources. And I want you to be as helpful, especially to your neighbors, to other persons within your communities, if we are seeing the onset of any hurricane during this period. I just want to inform the good folks of St. John's that you have 2 hurricane shelters within your constituency. One right here at Pond Hill Community Center, and the second is at the Alberta Payne Community Center in Bath Village. Those 2 community centers will be activated if needs be, and I'm appealing to our folks that if those community centers are activated, and if you are in need of the services of those community centers that will turn into hurricane shelters, we would want you to move very early before the onset of the storm. I have been given a signal that I'm already up to 10 minutes, so I will pause at this time and allow my other colleagues to make their presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Spencer Brand, for that very informative presentation. We shall now go to Deputy Premier, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scarborough, and let me say good evening to all who are here at the Pond Hill Community Center for this first in a series of town hall meetings. And of course, let me greet all who are here, Premier, Honorable Mark Brantley, Honorable Spencer Brand, and other members of Cabinet and other government officials in the audience. And of course, those of you from the general public who are here, we are delighted to have you with us this evening. I will try to be as brief as possible. I know I have 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do, just briefly, I'm going to focus on 2 areas of my portfolio, agriculture and culture. With regards to agriculture, this is a sector, of course, that has always gotten tremendous support from the Nevis Island administration. And I'm sure all of us would agree with me that this sector would have received the most support during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I can dare say that this momentum that we had from the COVID-19 pandemic has not let up at all. We're very serious about agriculture. We're very serious about food security, food production, food sovereignty. And so all of our efforts in the department and the Ministry of Agriculture are geared towards that end. Of course, we would have hosted our flagship event on the 27th and the 28th of March at the ETW Park. That is an event that practically all of Nevis and St. Kitts and some of the neighboring islands look forward to. and we would have hosted that event. I would say that, as usual, it was a huge success. And I must say that the Agri Expo, it is not a show. The Agri Expo is a reflection of what happens with regards to agriculture on the island of Nevis. And if we want to see what is happening in the agricultural sector on Nevis, we must attend the Agri Expo on an annual basis. What we see at the Expo is a reflection of the work that is happening with our farmers, with the department and the Ministry of Agriculture. Of course, what we see there, what we're able to purchase, what we're able to sample, those are not things that are grown overnight. So it's a process, and I must give kudos and commendation to all who are involved. And of course, our participation level for the Agri Expo continues to grow every year. And so this year we would have had the most persons who would have taken part. We have excellent collaboration from the other government departments and from our farmers and our allied agencies. And of course, again this year, it was an overwhelming success. Coming on the heels, quickly on the heels of the Agri Expo, we normally host our Agriculture Awareness Month in the month of May. I dare say that that was instituted when I was the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. And I must say as well that that has been a huge success over the years. This year for the Agriculture Awareness Month, our focus would have been heavily on training. And so we would have hosted 3 training events. One was focused on livestock production, one on crop protection, and one on backyard gardening. Because of course, in the Department and Ministry of Agriculture, we also encourage a lot of backyard gardening because we want people to get involved. We want people to utilize their space, whether it's in your backyard, your front yard, or your side yard. We want you to get involved. We want everybody to get involved towards food security. And so we would have focused primarily on training during our Agriculture Awareness Month. We would have also done some work in our primary and preschools as well, bearing in mind that we have always been trying to focus on our schools with regards to agriculture. And so those would have went very well. I must say here as well, quickly, that coming off the heels of our Agri Expo, because I did say earlier that this is an event that gets attention, not only St. Kitts and Nevis, but throughout the region. And one of our neighboring islands that has always been admiring what we do here on Nevis is St. Eustachia. And they have been inspired, and because they have been inspired by coming to Nevis over the years, they would have hosted their first ever agricultural exhibition on the 13th of June. And I'm pleased to say that a delegation of over 30 persons from Nevis, from the Department of Agriculture, and some of our vendors, farmers, would have journeyed to Statia to support them. I believe we all know, it is common knowledge, that they support us very heavily during our exhibition, and we were happy to reciprocate that support for them. I will move quickly to culture, and of course we know that this is a time of the year when we focused on Culturama. We know as well that Culturama is spearheaded by the Nevis Island Administration. It is an event that all of us on Nevis look forward to, on St. Kitts and in the diaspora. And we are well on our way in terms of hosting the Caribbean's greatest summer lime. We would have hosted the launch of the festival on the 20th of June, and during that launch, we would have seen some excitement where our contestants and participants for the various shows were introduced. They introduced themselves, and I can tell you that the feedback from that launch and from that reveal of the contestants was overwhelming. I must give kudos and commendation to the committee members. I must give kudos and commendation to the persons who would have come forward to be a part of the various shows this year. We have 5 participants for the Mr. Cool, 4 for Miss Culture, 4 for Miss Culture Swimwear. We have 5 schools taking part in the Talented Youth Pageant. We have 15 junior calypsonians. And I must say as well that I think this year we have a record number of soca artists. I must say as well that this coming Saturday, we have another soca teaser tent at the Artisan Village that will be twinned with the night market. Before that, we have a Calypso tent, and that will be taking place at the Kaiso Bar, right here at Panko's, and so I'm asking you to attend. Of course, on Thursday we have another town hall meeting, but after the town hall, I'll be going to the Calypso tent. And of course, you'll be able to see our host, Mr. Scarborough, and other Calypsonians during that Calypso tent. And so things are well on our way for Culturama, and I want to take this opportunity to invite all of us to be a part of the festival, and in particular, we're inviting all in the diaspora to come home, as you did last year, to be a part of the Caribbean's greatest summer lime as we celebrate under the slogan, Division Pride, second to none, Culturama 51. I'm going to leave it there for now. There's a lot more to say, but I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Eric Evelyn. We now move straight to the constituency representative, Premier the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley, for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scarborough, and I greet my colleagues here at the head table and everybody who's here, including cabinet colleagues and fellow parliamentarians and others who are here. Welcome. I also greet, of course, those who are online and viewing. I think these town hall meetings are very important because they give us an opportunity as government to speak to our people in the communities, to go into the communities, to see our people and to have a conversation with them. And I'm hopeful that those who are here and those who are online, if they have questions or need follow-up information, that they will certainly seek out those answers. We have said as a government that we are open, we're transparent, and what we do is the people's business, and that is why we're here. I start on a sad note this evening because in my capacity as Premier and also as Minister of Tourism, I have had the privilege of working very closely with Mr. Billy Cueto, the former General Manager at the Four Seasons Resort Nevis. In fact, I was in St. Kitts for a few days at the annual St. Kitts Music Festival, and on Thursday evening, I spent quite a bit of time with Mr. Cueto. He was at the same festival, at the same booth that I was at, and we spent some time talking. And it is ironic that he and I were to have lunch this week. On Saturday morning, very early, just after 6, a dear friend of mine reached out to say that Mr. Cueto had passed, that he had died quite suddenly. And I really wanted to use this opportunity, being the first opportunity that I've had to speak publicly, to express my very, very deep condolences to him. He is newly married, and so I would want to express my condolences to his wife and to his entire family. And beyond that, I want to express condolences to the Four Seasons family. Four Seasons has been an institution here on this island for over 3 decades, and I believe that many would say that Mr. Cueto has been, if not the best, one of the best general managers that they've had at that hotel. And so I really would like to join all of Nevis, but certainly more specifically the Four Seasons family, in expressing my deepest, deepest condolences to his family and those that survive him, those that loved him, his friends. And I want to perhaps use that sudden passing of Mr. Cueto to remind us all that we do not know the day nor the hour. And oftentimes, even in the context of our politics, we get very bitter. We go on the attack against each other. But none of us knows when our time will come. So it behooves us to live with each other as best as we can and to do what we can to help each other, because ultimately that is all that we can do. Let me move on then to talk about some developments. The Honorable Spencer Brand would have mentioned the road in Upper Brown Pasture, that general area where the tank was erected there in St. John's. And I want to just say publicly thank you to the Honorable Spencer Brand and his team. Thank you to the Cabinet for approving the funding. Thank you to the contractor, who is Mr. Clark, who's dealing with that road for us. But more than that, I want to say thank you to the residents of that area. They have been more than patient. In fact, that road was so bad that they sent a petition asking that that road be dealt with. And I was in the area recently as I tried to do around the constituency, and I realized the road was well and truly on the way. And I met a particular gentleman there, and I said, how do you like the road that's being built? And he said, you promised me that nearly 10 years ago. And I said, you know, you are right, the road has been promised for a long time, but it is now being done. And I want to just say to our people that our commitment to them remains resolute. It may not happen right away, it may not happen overnight, but you can be assured that it will happen. And so, Minister Brand, thank you for that, and I wanted to lead with that. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to, given that we have a limited time for opening presentations, not tarry for too long. But I wanted to point out that today was an historic day on the island of Nevis. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, we opened the bids for the geothermal project, the drilling aspect. And I'm very proud to announce tonight that we had 5 major global companies bidding on the geothermal project. It was, for me, incredibly heartwarming to see that a lot of hard work, a lot of effort over the years, in fact 2 decades worth of effort, that we now at a point where companies have seen it fit to put in their bids to be part of this project. The bids will be evaluated, and certainly once that evaluation is done, we will come back to say what the findings are. I just want the public to know that there is no political influence or political involvement in this process. I am not evaluating the bids, the NIA is not evaluating the bids, the project is being led by the technical team at Nevis, and they're being ably assisted by consultants from the Caribbean Development Bank. And so that's where we are at this point, but I think today has been a very exciting day. I anticipate that tomorrow this will be the subject of some kind of press release because, of course, the federal government is also very, very ecstatic about what has happened today. But today we took a giant leap forward, and I want to say thank you to all of those who have been involved with that particular process. We will learn more as we go. I also wanted to give a brief update on our airport project. The airport project is one that is very important to the people of Nevis. The last significant upgrades that were done at Van Sammer International were over 20 years ago. And we all, I think, can acknowledge that the airport in its current form has grown obsolete. And so we are trying our best to do a project that will give us 20, 30, 40 years in the future at the present site. I am pleased to announce that our financing is largely in place. I say largely because there is one other agreement that we need to sign, but we have had the commitments on the financing, and that the holdup really has been some financing, local financing from the National Bank for the purchase of the lands. We've been going back and forth. The word I got today, because I called, I said I'm going to a town hall meeting, I need to be able to tell the people of Nevis something, is that the funds should start flowing next week. And if that is to happen, then it means that we can pay out the landowners next week, starting next week, and take possession of the lands at issue. Once we have the lands, then the rest of the project flows. I want to thank the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, who has been leading that particular project. I know that we are going through the planning process now to finalize matters there. I want to, of course, thank Perez Consulting, who has been with us throughout this time on this project, and to say to the people of Nevis that this project is well and truly on, and we anticipate that we will break ground very shortly. Now, why is that important? It's important that I say that in St. John's because St. John's has a lot of heavy equipment operators, truck owners, people like those, who we know depend very heavily on government and government projects for their businesses. I want to say to you that our expectation is that there will be a considerable amount of work to be done at this airport. This airport is looking to be a $40 million US project. So there's a significant amount of work, a significant amount of expenditure that will be there, and we're hoping to see the multiplier effect in the local economy. And so I urge those who are in a position to benefit to certainly get themselves ready to benefit. I like to say to the people of Nevis that if you hear that something is sharing, go and look. A lot of times we sit back and we're waiting for somebody to call us. Go and investigate. show the drive and the initiative, and therefore we hope that you'll get the benefits that are there to accrue. So I just wanted to say that on those two fronts, we're making significant progress, and I anticipate that we will be able to move forward in a quick way. The hospital project, that is a project that has had a lot of attention because of the delays associated with it. I was reflecting that people say that the hospital has been under construction for 7 or 8 years. That's not actually true. The hospital only had 2 years of construction, and then of course COVID intervened, and then we did not restart the project after COVID, or we have not yet restarted it. We're still committed to restarting that project this year. We've had, of course, a Taiwanese firm involved. I've mentioned that publicly, and they have sent us their preliminary reports. In addition, we have gone back for some additional information from them, and we're looking to see how and what is the best way to implement that project going forward. But the commitment is there, and I want to sit here in Pond Hill as Premier tonight to tell the people of Nevis that we are committed to ensuring that that project is brought to a successful conclusion. I had asked my Ministry of Finance for some numbers so that I could have on where we are. This, of course, being the end of the first half of 2025. And what I can say is that the numbers at this point are looking quite good for Nevis. I'm asking my colleagues to help me to keep them looking good. Expenditure is under control, and the revenue is up quite significantly. In fact, if I can just identify one particular area, which is our international business, we say colloquially offshore business, but the international services, that the numbers that we've seen for the first 5 months of 2025 are nearly 70%, 70% higher than they were in 2022, and we are already 14% higher than where we were in 2024. So at this point, we are doing quite well. We are averaging just about 275 new incorporations per month. And you have to extrapolate outwards, because if you're doing that per month, then you multiply it by 12, but you also have to remember that all of those that were there before have to renew on an annual basis. We are, I believe, in making good progress. I did say to the industry that my ambition was that we would grow the sector by 50% over the course of this next 3 years. And so clearly, if we're 70% up on 2022, and already 14% up this year on 2024, then it means that we're making significant progress. And as you know, we recently went ahead and increased the fees that are payable for these incorporations. And despite there was a lot of chatter, that has not slowed incorporations or slowed business, because we really move fees incrementally. There were some fees that were, say, $275 US, we carried it to $300 US. So the move was not so dramatic that it would cause any flight of business. And I'm hopeful that these efforts being made by the people, the government on behalf of the people of Nevis, will continue to bear fruit. I'll say one last thing before I yield, and that has to do with the approach that we've taken in relation to raising money, raising revenue for government. Governments have a number of revenue raising mechanisms available to them. We can go out and tax everybody. We can go out and raise fees on everybody. We can raise rates across the board. We have been very deliberate as a government to try to raise money in ways that do not have a direct impact on the people in our villages and in our communities. And so you'd have seen us as government, what have we done? We've increased the rates for incorporation and international business. Those are not paid by us. Those are paid by people coming in to do business. We have recently increased, for example, our tourism development levy from 2% to 3%. That is not paid by us, that is paid by the guests who come in. Largely the Four Seasons is who contributes most significantly to that. And so what we've tried to do is to find interesting ways, novel ways, innovative ways to continue to raise money, because without revenue, we can't do the road in brown pasture, we can't do the new water tanks, we can't do any of those things. But to do so in a way that doesn't have this harsh impact on the people in our villages and our communities. And so to the people of St. John's, I can't sit here in St. John's and not thank you for your faith and confidence in me. Over all these years, it's been a long time that you've been in love with me and I've been in love with you. And so we continue to work together for the benefit of the people of Nevis, and that is what we are seeking to do. And so I yield Mr. Scarborough, MBE, and I hope to be able to come back because I have a lot of information that I would want to share, but I didn't want to be as long as Spencer was. So I will yield for now and wait for an opportunity to come back a bit later.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. We are now going into the questions and answers, but before we do that, let me just say to the persons listening online that we are taking your questions online, so please feel free to send your questions forward. And to say to you as well that the Honorable Troy Liebert and the Honorable Janet Elizabeth are here to answer your questions as well. If there's any questions for them, please feel free to send them forward. One last thing before we go into the questions and answer period. Please, when you're asking your questions, conduct yourself nicely. Be respectful with your questions. And after your questions has been asked, please listen for the answer rather than disturb the person that is answering. So please, let's do it respectfully. We are now ready and open for questions from the floor. We do have some questions that we have received online already. So if there's nobody who is ready yet to speak from the floor, I want to... Nobody's here. Okay. Let me just read a couple of questions I have here for the Honorable Premier that came in online. Honorable Premier, how do you plan to keep the constituents informed about your work and decisions? That's the first question. And the second question is, what are your plans to attract new businesses and jobs to our area? I don't know which area that is, I guess. I'll have to say Nevis for now, because they didn't specify, but our area. Those are the two questions for you, Honorable Premier.
Mr. Scarborough, thank you very much. How do I plan to keep people informed? I want our people to cast their minds back, for those who are old enough, and to think about all the premiers that Nevis has had. We had the Honorable Simeon Daniel of blessed memory, our first premier. We had the Honorable Vance Emery of blessed memory, our second premier. We had the Honorable Joseph Walcott Parry, our third premier. And then I have been in that seat since 2017. When you reflect on this island over that period of time, I don't think that there's any doubt, Mr. Scarborough, that I have been the most accessible of all the premiers that we've had.
Sure.
Yes, times have changed and there's greater access now to tools to keep in touch, but I have a monthly press conference. That was an innovation that was done by this administration. We never had that before. I have a weekly talk show. No premier has been on the radio every week on a Wednesday, having a conversation with the people, taking questions, taking some blows as well sometimes, but having an opportunity to interact. We have these town hall engagements. Those who know me know that I'm an avid user of social media. I'm there every day engaging with people as time permits. So in terms of access, I have my one-on-ones that I do, that I've pioneered that at my office where people can come in, usually on a Thursday, and engage. So the truth is that there's been a myriad opportunities, and this town hall is just another opportunity that we have provided as a government, consistent with our approach that we are an open and transparent government. When we say that, Mr. Scarborough, some people say, oh, what are you talking about? And I just want to make it very clear that no government has taken the steps that we have taken. When we think about integrity in public life, we think about the setting up of the commission, the funding of that commission, the filing of our annual reports to that integrity commission. We know and always understood that it was difficult. We know that there are many people who feel that this is an imposition. But these were the steps that we have taken in order to ensure that we have a level of transparency that will lead to greater confidence in the processes of government. So in terms of access to information and access to what I'm doing, I think that I've been very out there. In fact, a constituent told me that I talk too much, which to me as a politician is a good thing. Because if I'm out there talking and I'm sharing information, I think that's a very good thing. And I think the cabinet has been very open, and all of us have been very open in terms of what we do and sharing that with the public. You talk about businesses and jobs, and you said in Nevis. And I continue to say that Nevis is in a unique position when we look at the statistics provided by Social Security. These are not government statistics, because Social Security, as we know, is an independent body. And Social Security keeps telling Nevis that we have more jobs than workers. Let me say that again. Social Security keeps telling Nevis we have more jobs than workers. That is a rather interesting position to be in, because that gap between the number of jobs and the number of available workers sometimes is as high as 300 or 400. And so I have asked Social Security, well, how are these jobs being filled? And the answer that they've given is that they're being filled because some people are choosing to do 2 or 3 jobs. Those of us who are old enough know that there was a time in Nevis when there was no payday. There were no jobs. The fact that Nevis is now a place where people can choose to do 2 and 3 if they so desire, where we're now attracting in large numbers immigrants coming in from our neighboring islands, our brothers and sisters from St. Lucia, from Dominica, from Guyana, from the Dominican Republic, who are coming to join us to help us develop our island. And why are they coming? I told somebody the other day that people don't go to places to look for hardship. People travel to places to look for opportunity. And what is happening now is that as people come, they send back for their friends, they send back for their family. I spoke to a young lady the other day from Dominica. She said there are 3 siblings, they're all here, and they've now sent for mom and dad as well. So the entire family has now moved here. And if we think and cast our minds back to the 1950s and 60s and 70s when our people were leaving in large numbers for England, for the United States, it was the same pattern. Father probably went first, then he sent for his wife, then he sent for the children, and that is what is happening now. We went abroad to look for opportunity. People are now coming to Nevis to look for opportunity. I think that speaks for itself, and I don't need to add too much to that. What I will say to our people, however, is that I am getting and continue to get the complaint from employers that Nevisians are not taking up the jobs that are on offer. I know that it is not popular for me as a Premier of Nevis to say, but the argument that I'm getting from employers across this island is that our own people are not taking advantage of the opportunities that exist in the island. So I was at a particular business place, and I hope they don't mind me saying which, but at the Radius Call Center in Brown Hill. They were supposed to be up to about 150, 160 workers at this point. The last time I checked, when I was there, they were at mid-80s, 86 or something like that. And I asked them why. And they said that was the problem that they were having, that they keep advertising, but they were having difficulties in terms of recruiting. And so they said that, believe it or not, they're now recruiting from OECS countries. So people are coming in to take up those jobs. They told me, 50 positions that they were this year, 50. So there's work. I thought maybe it was unique to them because, of course, most of what the call centers offer are entry-level positions. But I had a meeting with the Nevis chapter of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and they share the same concern. Big companies here like TDC and others are having difficulty finding workers. So I'm encouraging our people to grab these opportunities. And I'm encouraging our parents. One titan, I would call him, of business here in the community. I'm not going to call his name, but he's well known. And he is in charge of one of our major companies. And he recounted a recent situation where a job was offered to a young person, and the young person's mother said, My house isn't leaking, my child isn't hungry. My child ain't going out to go work for that kind of money. And so the child was dissuaded by the mother from going to work because her house not leaking and the child not hungry. And we need to talk about these things openly because we need to consider where does that attitude lead us in 10 years and 15 years. And I have said to our own people, the government is doing its part. The government is creating the environment where businesses are coming in and businesses are opening. But when that happens, our people now need to take advantage of those opportunities and not sit back. I think, Eric, you shared with me one time how a constituent said to you that they could not find work, only to find out they had never applied anywhere. Never applied anywhere because somehow our people feel like I should sit at home and somebody should come to my house, knock on my door, and tell me I have something here for you to do. We just need to get active. We need to take advantage. And I can't stress enough to our people that where there are opportunities, take two.
Thank you very much for your response, Honorable Premier. Any questions on the floor? Yes.
Good evening, all. Minister Brand, you mentioned about the water tank at the Morgan Heights and the road coming down to Burden Pasture, I think. What of the road going from the top back to Hermitage? We used to walk that road practically every day. That road was disrupted with the laying of the water lines. Storms came, washed it right out, and it's not drivable. It's very difficult to walk as well. So I'm just checking on that. You mentioned as well about the fiberglass tank at Morning Star. What was the capacity of that, and how are you now servicing the area, seeing that that tank is offline? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mackie, for those questions. You asked about the road to Hermitage as part of this project. It is not necessarily a part of this project that we are currently doing in terms of the road from Morgan Estate down to the village. It is not necessarily a part of this project. You are correct. When they did the water tank, that road was actually disturbed by the laying of pipes. I would say to you, though, that we are kind of hesitant to do any work on that particular road for a number of reasons. We are also doing the well at Dason's Estate. And the thinking is that we may need to connect that well back to either the Morgan Estate tank or all the way back to Hamilton for the geothermal project. So that's a route that I know that we have looked at in terms of the line from Dason's Estate back to Morgan or back to the Hamilton side. So that's an area that we are looking at. The fiberglass tank at Morning Star, I believe that the capacity was around 200,000 gallons, and I believe, I'll have to confirm it, but I believe it was somewhere around there. The area that tank served would have been in the Morning Star area, church ground. I think he went all the way down to Bath Village, if needs be. We are doubling the capacity with a 400,000+ gallon, with the thinking that if needs be, we can move some of that water as well all the way into Charlestown. And if we are really, really under pressure, all the way over down to Four Seasons. So we are trying to build a number of redundancies in the system with that 400,000 gallon tank. We definitely will be covering Brown Hill, Cherry Garden, Bath Village, Stony Grove, Marion Heights, those areas. And then if we are really, really under pressure, we can shift the water over into Charlestown, down to Four Seasons area as well. Sorry? We are servicing the area all the way from Gingerland. we are borrowing some water from my good friend here, and as well a part of the Morgan Estate tank. So we are putting a little bit of pressure on Gingerland, but they can take the pressure. Yes, the Premier is correct that once we would have installed that new tank, we will relieve a lot of the pressure from Gingerland, and of course we will relieve some of the pressure from the Morgan Estate, and we'll have that additional redundancy in the system as well if needs be. The timeline, we are looking at 6 to 8 months, so it may go late this year, early into next year to have it completed. One of the challenges that we are perhaps foreseeing with all of this tariff and shipping, global shipping concerns, we may want to extend that time slightly to perhaps maybe by the latest March next year. But we are hoping to get it done as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much, Honorable Spencer Brand. Are there any more questions from the floor? If not, I shall go to the questions online at this point. There's 2 questions here for the Honorable Eric Evelyn. Honorable Evelyn, the question is being asked, what will you do to make housing more affordable? And the second question is, there has been a drought of road improvements in Gingerland. Are there any plans for a drought of roads? A drought of roads being constructed in Gingerland. Are there any plans to do any more roads in Gingerland at this point? I guess that's what the persons are asking.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scarborough, for those questions. With regards to housing and making housing more affordable, unfortunately, the Nevis Island administration doesn't have control over pricing of building material. I believe all of us would know that ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, the cost of building material and other material has skyrocketed. And even though the Nevis Island administration has done quite a lot in terms of making concessions to persons who are building homes, persons who are building first-time homeowners, even second-time homeowners, and of course the Housing and Land Development Corporation, we have tremendous concessions that are offered to persons who construct homes. And so right now, I can tell you that with regards to the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, the persons who are applying and the persons who are getting homes through the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation are only paying a fraction of what they actually should be paying for their homes. I could recall at one point in time, we visited one of the new housing projects, the one there in Cherry Garden, Chimney Crescent, and we would have visited the home with the prospective homeowner, and a contractor was there at the time, accompanying us, told us that this person who is going to be owning this home is getting about $75,000 off of what he should actually be paying. So right now I can say that the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation are making things as affordable as we can. The Nevis Island administration is making things as affordable as we can with our concessions that are offered from the Ministry of Finance, but we can only go that far. As I indicated, the TDCs and the hospitals and so on, they are bringing in building material. We do not import building material. And so persons who are constructing their homes and the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation eventually have to purchase from these companies. And as I said, we can't set the prices. So we will continue to extend the concessions, and we will ensure that persons are getting the homes as affordable as we possibly can. With regards to in a bit. Yeah, you'll help me. Minister Brand was saying he can deal with the roads. But I was going to say, Mr. Scarborough, that it is not true to say that there has been a drought of road improvement in Gingerland. That is not absolutely correct. There has been some road improvement in the Gingerland area over the past years. I know only recently some work was done up in the Rollins area, Zetland Rollins area. And I have said to persons in the Rollins area in particular that up at the top, when you go from Zetlands, go all the way up to Stony Hill. That road is an excellent piece of road. I know prior to me getting into office, there was some work done in the Rollins area as well. On the next side of Rollins, from Pittyman's shop come down into the village area. And so it's not just now the main thoroughfare going up into Rollins to be done. Of course, we would have done some little side roads even before I got into government in the Gingerland area. Road work would have been done down in the Matchman's area. I know right now we are considering doing some work in Rollins and in Maynard grounds in particular. And so, as I said, Mr. Scarborough, it is not absolutely correct to say that there has been a drought, because road works have been continuing. I know some road works have been done in little other sections as well. I know down in Hanley's Road, there was some work down there. Well, of course, the Hanley's Road is a main thoroughfare, and some significant work was done there a couple of years ago. Down to the bottom of Hanley's Road, some work was done down there as well. And so we have been trying, and we will continue. As I said, Minister Brand wants to chime in on this. We would have done some work down in the area between Zion and Hickman's as well. And so work has been done in Gingerland, but the work will continue. And I'm going to turn it over now to Minister Brand, who is the mastermind behind the roadworks on Nevis, to chime in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Premier. I want to assure the people of Gingerland that we are looking at two major road projects in the Gingerland area. The Deputy Premier would have mentioned Rollins. We actually already took the field data for the Rollins Road project. We have done some preliminary design on that Rollins Road project. I believe that our water department would have also already came up with their design in terms of the pipe network on that project. We have also looked at the Taylor's Pasture Road. That has been on the cards for some time. We already did the actual road carriageway in terms of the design. We are in conversation with NEVLEC to give them some idea as to what exactly we are thinking, because they will have to move some electricity poles. Water department also will have to go in and do some upgrade to the water infrastructure in Taylor's Pasture. So we are doing some things in the background, and we are hoping that at least one of these road projects will start during the course of this year, because we feel that those two areas are in critical need of road upgrade. The Taylor's Pasture, that I know that we have looked at for at least over 2 years now, and the Rollins area, where we would have done the significant field data concept design, and we are hoping that we can trigger at least one of those projects during the course of this year.
Thank you very much for that response, Honorable Evelyn and Honorable Spencer Brand. Are there any more questions from the floor? Okay, Mr. Perkins.
Pleasant good evening, firstly to the head table and those gathered here. A question for the Honorable Premier, and it follows from some of the details you revealed in on the Mark show last week as to why the unity government failed or collapsed in the end. Some of what you said was quite, pull it up? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so some of what you said last week, I think was last week, was quite revealing and, in fact, quite stunning. And I think the public at large appreciated what you said in terms of now knowing a lot of the details as to, what happened and why the unity government collapsed. I would like to know from you if you have looked at the Constitution to determine if there is a way to amend it such that a sitting prime minister does not have the authority to fire a number of his ministers and render that government a minority government. Because I have thought about that situation ever since. And it is, to me, absolutely shocking that a sitting prime minister can fire, at that time, 6 ministers and was left with 3 ministers, and the government, quote unquote, functioned for however long until there was an election. I think something is just drastically wrong with that scenario, and I believe we need to look at the Constitution in a way that if it could be amended without going to a referendum and so on, that particular issue need to be addressed by a bill being brought to the House. If that's possible, like I said, I'm not sure of I've not really looked at it, the constitutional requirements. And I would suggest that one of the things that need to be looked at is that no sitting prime minister can fire one minister or a number of ministers that would render his government a minority government. So I just wanted to ventilate a bit on that at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Perkins, thank you very much for that question. It's a fascinating question. As I indicated in that show that you spoke about, we actually took advice from Queen's Counsel, as he then was in London. And the advice that Queen's Counsel gave is that it was open to the Governor General to take action in those circumstances. We shared that opinion with the Governor General, and the Governor General declined that advice, said he was not persuaded that he could take action. And so the result was the farce that you mentioned, that you had one person fired 6, leaving himself with a government of 3, with 8 elected members out in the yard, as I like to say. Clearly that is not a good representation of democracy, which is government by the people and for the people, because the majority of the people were not represented in the government. Clearly it made no sense because not even the parliament could be convened. How are you going to pass laws with 3 parliamentarians and the other 8? I don't even know where we would sit, those of us who were fired, perhaps on the opposition benches. So the whole thing was rendered to be a joke. And I really thought that the Governor General had the capacity, in light of the advice that we got, to say to the person who was occupying the position of Prime Minister, you are only in that position because you command the support of a majority of elected members. And so at any point when you no longer command that support, a question of your legitimacy as Prime Minister must arise. Because the way you got the position was only because you could show that you commanded a majority of support. So if that majority is gone, then your legitimacy as Prime Minister goes with it. And so those types of arguments didn't get any amplification or, frankly, any acceptance by the GG of the day. And so we ended up with what we ended up with. And the irony was that the 6 of us wrote to the GG to indicate that we had lost confidence in the Prime Minister and we were reposing confidence in someone else. The judge said he could not act. But when the Prime Minister, who had no confidence in him anymore, therefore no support from a majority, said, Gigi, fire all of them. The judge said he could act on that. So we had ended up in a situation, Mr. Perkins, where notwithstanding that all of us won a seat, that one of us was elevated to Prime Minister with the support of the other seats. But when that support was withdrawn, the one who had been elevated still remained king. And we were the subjects. And therein, I think, lies the problem. So I think a lot of it has to do with how we interpret our Constitution and what the norms are that are used to interpret that Constitution. Having said that, I agree with you that if it could be amended to ensure that those types of, I don't even know what word, ridiculous situations never occur in the future, then it ought to be done. I will only say tonight that we will celebrate this year 42 years of independence. And in 42 years, we have not even changed a comma in our Constitution. So I hear a lot of talk about constitutional reform. I've yet to see any constitutional reform in action. And not many people have really stepped up to the plate to try and shift and say, let us amend this or amend that. I end by telling you that in many instances, our Constitution is notoriously difficult to amend. Because for some provisions, as you mentioned, we require a referendum. And what's interesting about St. Kitts and Nevis, for some provisions, you require a referendum in St. Kitts and a separate referendum in Nevis. And you require, in some instances, a 2/3 majority. So imagine you have to have a referendum in St. Kitts, a referendum in Nevis, a supermajority. That's almost an impossibility to change some provisions. Other provisions are not as difficult, but there are some entrenched provisions which are extremely difficult to change.
Thank you very much for your response, Honorable. Any more questions on the floor?
Good evening. Just an observation I'm looking at there. I don't know if there are some well drilling happening up at Braziers. Is there a well being dug? I am seeing that while a well is being dug, that houses are being built right where the wells are being dug. In fact, I think there are 2 houses. So the well is between 2 houses. And my concern is if the wells are going down, way down, and then the septic tanks are going way down, then is some interference with the water system eventually. I'm wondering if there shouldn't have been some kind of understanding to say that we're going to cordon off a particular area, where there's 10,000 square feet or whatever it is. So it just kind of had me a bit concerned. And so I'm asking you as the Minister of Water whether this is something that is in the norm, or whether the wells will be compromised eventually, whether we will be having E. coli in the water. I don't know. I'm trying to understand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, for that question. We are very much aware that some of the lands around the site that we are drilling in Braziers are residential property. And we do expect that at some point, those landowners will engage in some construction. You have raised an important concern or question as it regards to the septic tank and soakaway and so on. And I want to probably broaden it a bit more, that the well in Braziers, I believe the depth of it is over 550 plus feet. I am not saying that the remnants from the soakaway or septic tank will not get to that depth. But how the rainwater and how the aquifers are construed, so to speak, it is somewhat kind of difficult for the water from the soakaway and septic tank to get to that. I'm not saying that it is impossible, but I'm saying that it will be extremely difficult. But I want to look at it on a much more holistic, on the island of Nevis, really, because practically 99+% of our water comes from deep well. And we have construction, we have surface runoff, we have runoff from land-based activity. Construction site, we have a lot of hard surfaces on the island of Nevis where we are having a lot of those water running off seeping into the ground. What we do on a regular, perhaps daily basis, or every other day, we treat our water. We test our water. We have a very rigorous and stiff regimen when it comes around the testing of our water to make sure that none of those kind of contaminants get into our system. And even if there is no contaminant in our water system, we treat for it anyway. So we try to stay ahead of those contaminants before it actually becomes a problem. So that is how we try to stay ahead of it, by treating the water.
Thank you very much, Honorable Spencer Brown. Are there any more questions on the floor?
Good night.
Before Astro asked this question, the Premier was speaking about the depth of the septic. Septic tank is what, 10, 12 feet deep? Soakaway might be about what, 20, 30 plus feet, 40 feet? Sorry? Yes. But breaking the crust at 30, 40 feet, then you remember you still have 500 plus feet to, that thing is going to dissipate even before it reaches to the water. But it's a noted concern.
Yeah, I just think that with the wells being so close, the proximity to residential housing to me, it just seems like it's our place.
You need us to widen the exclusion zone. Oh. Pointing.
Yes, my question is a sports question, so it could be answered by Mr. Liebert, the Premier, or anyone at the head table. First, from Thursday through Thursday, July 3rd, to the 24th, July 24th, St. Kitts Nevis will be hosting the Cricket West Indies Rising Star Under-19 cricket tournament. Seven matches are scheduled for ETW Willett Park, which is our main cricket venue. However, for this to be made possible, quite a bit of renovations had to be undertaken as to ready it for the hosting of these matches. Thus this question, are there any plans for the upgrade of the park and or another venue to a level to once again host first-class matches? Thanks.
Astro, thank you for the question. Cricket is near and dear to all of us in Nevis, and we understand that. We have had some very serious contemplation of what we do. I believe Mr. Perkins is here, and Mr. Perkins had in fact been commissioned to look at whether there was a possibility of really bringing ETW to international standard. If I recall correctly, the report that we got, we would have had to take up some of Superfoods, the former Superfoods property. We would have had to take up some of the villa grounds on the other side. We would have had to move the road that is currently the school road, the high school road. And we would still, after doing all that, not have any parking or any adequate facilities in terms of traffic and all of that at that venue. ETW reminds me a lot of the old ARG, Antigua Recreation Ground in Antigua, for those who used to go to cricket in Antigua. And you had the same problems. in my young days when I went to cricket there, I used to park all the way down in town and try to walk to get to the ARG. So there's a genuine question as to whether the ETW, spending money there, is really wise and really could attract international cricket at that venue going forward. Now, there's a huge sentimental attachment in Nevis to ETW Park. That's where all the greats, including ETW himself, would have come from. So that's, I think, a legitimate conversation that we need to have. Long before we decide whether we put more money into it or not, we have to decide, is that the spot for it? The other option is really to build a brand new facility somewhere else. That's what Antigua did. Jamaica also did a new facility, I think, for Cricket World Cup when they had it. But I'm understanding that the new facility, for example, in Antigua has not attracted the crowds that the ARG used to attract, for example. So you lose something when you try to go elsewhere and improve. But you raise a question, I'm not sure I have the answer, because that is a legitimate debate, and I think we could only get the answer through consultation with cricket stakeholders, sports stakeholders, with the people of Nevis as to what they want to see in terms of cricket going forward. And whether or not that expenditure that would be warranted is expenditure that we should make at ETW, alternatively to just say, ETW, we can't do anything with you because of the limitations, we have to move and go someplace else entirely. I don't want to be misquoted or misunderstood. I don't have the answer. I'm simply saying that it is perhaps time that we have that kind of conversation with our people, especially the cricket stakeholders, to determine what they feel is the best approach for cricket and the future of cricket in Nevis. I'm very open to be guided. I think the government has demonstrated that we are guided by consultation on what people say and what the thoughts are, but therein lies the problem. And oftentimes when we talk about spending money at ETW and people clamor and say why we can't get international cricket, why we can't get a one-day, whatever the case may be, the cost of the infrastructural development to attract that cricket. Question is whether or not that cost is warranted given the limitations that I've described. It's not impossible, but the question is whether or not, as an island, that is the money that we would like to spend. So, to me, that decision needs to come from an engagement with stakeholders, and we have not yet done that.
Yeah,
let me weigh in a bit on that particular matter. I want to look at E.T. Willett Park perhaps in a broader context, in the sense that when you take a look at E.T. Willett Park, you recognize that directly above E.T. Willett Park, you have the cultural complex. You have the netball complex. And cultural village, all of that entertainment area. Perhaps we can look at some radical approach towards developing the entire area. We have that area above the cultural complex, that land area there. Perhaps I know the government don't like the idea of spending significant expenditures to acquire land and property. But right now we are also facing a major headache when it comes to parking in Charlestown, right? So when we think about the E.T. Willett scenario, cultural complex, netball complex, perhaps we can begin to entertain the thought of acquiring all of that piece of land within the area of Grove Park Road, going back to Government Road, coming back to, and we have 1 or 2 residences in between there. That will be able to provide adequate parking, perhaps for Charlestown, adequate parking for E.T. Willett Park, adequate parking for Cultural Village during Culturama. And we can begin to expand the overall development of that entire area, including that land. It's just a thought. And perhaps the sentimental attachment that all of us have to E.T. Willett Park can perhaps give some direction with that concept. I know it can cost some significant sums of money when you are thinking about acquiring land, especially in Charlestown. But I think at some point we can look at perhaps the cost benefit, the overall development to the island, the benefit from E.T. Willett Park, our cultural main attraction, our netball facility, and we can package all of that together to try and see how we can develop that entire area there together. So I just thought I would put that on the table as we consider some of the options in terms of that development.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Spencer Brand. Folks, we are rapidly running out of time with this town hall, and we have to give each presenter a little bit of time to wrap up. But before we do that, let me put this question to the Honorable Premier. The Mango Fest is just around the corner, and that is growing by leaps and bounds. Could you tell us, speak to us about the impact that the Mango Fest is having on the Nevis' economy at this time?
Mr. Scarborough, thank you for raising that, and I'm hopeful that everyone here will go out and support the activities for Mango Fest. It starts on Thursday, and it runs until Sunday. Mango Fest was designed specifically by this government and through the Ministry of Tourism to add value to the island and to the economy in what is traditionally regarded as a slow season for tourism. That really was the objective. And I believe that last year for the 10th anniversary, we saw the impact in a very significant way in terms of people coming. This year it looks like it's going to be even bigger than it was last year in terms of the appeal, in terms of people wanting to participate. And I think that that's a very good thing. Economic impact, like any of these types of festivals, is really heads in beds, people coming to stay at the hotels, car rentals, spa, restaurants, taxi drivers, and the list goes on in terms of stakeholders benefiting our exposure for the island, exposure for our young chefs. I'm told we're going to have close to 50 chefs at the venue. So all of these combined are benefits from putting on that type of event. The island is famous for its mangoes, and we thought we would use a local product available locally, which is the mango, to create something. And here we are 11 years later, because this is the 11th edition of that festival, and I think it has become a mainstay. In fact, what I've seen now, even at the Four Seasons, they're saying that if you've come in for music festival in St. Kitts, after all the fun and the late nights, you come to Nevis for the Mango Festival, and you spar and you do all the things that you do to pamper yourself and enjoy what Nevis has to offer. So I think that that's a very important initiative. I'm proud of, because I was, of course, involved with it from its inception, and it is an event I think continues to grow in terms of numbers and grow in terms of appeal and impact that it has on the island of Nevis. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you very much for that response, Honorable. Now we have quite a lot of questions coming in online, but very limited time. Let me just say before we go any further that the next town hall meeting is scheduled for Jessup's Community Center this coming Thursday, and I would like to urge all persons to get the question in as early as possible, because everybody waited until the last minute to send in the questions. So please, at the next town hall, try and get in your questions as early as possible. I think we have time for just 2 more questions before we wrap up this evening's town hall meeting. Honorable, this one is for you. It says you mentioned earlier that plans are progressing in terms of the planning with the Taiwanese. Are you able to provide a timeline That's the question from the person. Are you able to provide a timeline, I guess, to me when it's going to be started? The hospital.
Oh, at this point, all I can say is that it is our intention to restart the construction this year, but I don't have a timeline in terms of telling you the 1st of August or the 15th of September.
Thank you for the response. And finally, this question again for Premier Brantley. How will you rate the current relationship with the Prime Minister of St. Kitts, the Honorable Terence Chu?
I think the relationship is a good relationship. We have been working at it. We took a decision that it was important for the two administrations to work together. We have had a number of joint cabinet meetings thus far. And I'll be honest with you that today, after I informed my cabinet colleagues about the bidding process for the geothermal, the next person I informed was Prime Minister Drew. And he wanted to issue a press release right away. That's how happy he was about it. And the reason I informed him was because really and truly, we could not have got this far with this project without his assistance and him being on board. The CDB money, the federal government needed to sign off on it. The money from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the federal government had to sign off on it. And the Green Climate Fund has just, I think, pledged another $35 million. Again, they have to sign off on it. So the truth is that even though it's a Nevis project, resources on Nevis, that we have been trying to exploit it, that the progress we have made recently has really been as a result of that partnership. So I publicly say so because it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I think he has been helpful. He has been the most helpful Prime Minister in relation to that particular project that we have seen. Even when we sat in a unity government, a government that we helped to put in power, the support was not there on geothermal. So I must say that this is new. Some people say to me that they're not comfortable with the idea that we are working with the federal government, but I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And if I can get clean, cheap energy for the people of Nevis and the people of St. Kitts, I believe that's a good legacy to leave from being in political life. So I'm not standing on formality. I'm getting the work done. And they say what they say about the work. They say, you know, you have a coalition of the willing. So those who are willing to work, those are the ones that you try to embrace. And so thus far, I think that we have been working fairly well. We don't agree on everything. But on big matters like this, on big matters like the fight against crime, we have said that we will work, and we have been working well together in those respects.
Thank you very much for your response, Honorable. Folks, it's now to wind up, and we are going to start with the Honorable Spencer Brand. Your closing remarks for our listening and viewing audience.
Thank you very much, King. I just want to say how humbled I am to be at the head table at this time with my cabinet colleagues to update and inform the people of Nevis and to those who are listening as to the various developments within my ambit and my portfolio. I believe that as a government who have penned the mantra that people matter and people matter most, we continue to ensure that everything we do goes down to the benefit of our people. That is our mantra, that is our guiding light, and we will certainly continue to do that the best way we can. I just want to thank all those persons who would have made their way here tonight to be a part of this town hall meeting. And I certainly want to encourage those persons who are available to turn up to the various other town hall meetings to come on out and hear what your government is doing. We are your servant, and we are here to answer any questions that you pose to us. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Spencer Brand. Now to the Honorable Eric Evelyn for his closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scarborough. And of course, I just want to echo the words from my colleague here. It's always a pleasure to converse with the people of Nevis. We have your best interests at heart. And of course, we are an open and transparent administration. And this series of town hall meetings is just part of that process. As I wrap up, I just wanted to make two quick comments with regard to the questions that I had received. because I forgot to mention when we were talking about roads in Gingerland that we did have some work done in Hull Ground at one point and down in the Claygut area. And with regards to the affordability of homes, I want to make a special appeal to our people, persons who are thinking of building their homes, persons who are thinking of applying to the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation for their homes as well. We should try as much as possible. The affordability issue lies not only with the administration, we've been trying to do that, and not only with the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, but that affordability issue lies with you who are going to try to build your homes as well. We've had instances where persons apply to the corporation, they want a 3-bedroom home, they go to the bank said your salary would not allow you to get a loan for a 3-bedroom home, and some of those persons are not prepared to go down. They are not prepared to take something of a lesser value. And so some persons, instead of not taking something for a lesser value, prefer not to go forward with their home. And so that affordability issue also lies with you, the homeowner. We have to try as much as possible to build according to our pocket. And I just want to give that piece of advice to all who are planning to build a home. And once again, it has been our pleasure, and I want to say as well, we thank you for coming out, and we expect to see all of you and more at all of our future town hall meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Eric Evelyn. Now for Premier, the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley, closing remarks.
Thank you all for being here. This is an exercise in democracy, it's an exercise in transparency, it's an exercise in openness. These town hall meetings are designed to allow the public to get reports firsthand from the members of government. We do so in the Premier's press conference, we do so on radio, with the government at work, we do so on the mark, we are on social media engaging, but this is yet another opportunity. The panel will change from town hall to town hall, new people will be added, but the idea really is the same. We are, as servants of the people, here to report to the people as to what it is we're doing in their name and for their benefit. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I consider it an incredible honor and privilege to have been allowed to serve the people of Nevis in government, and we will continue to do so, abiding by our central theme and the ethos that defines us as a party and as a government, that our people must be at the epicenter of all that we do. People matter most, has been and continues to be our calling card. So thank you for all who have been here. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hosting. And I believe that we've had a good night. I'm told that we have some refreshments for those who want something to take away. And I look forward certainly to seeing everybody in Jessup's when we have the next town hall meeting.
Thank you very much, Honorable. And thank you all for coming. Just a reminder that the next town hall is scheduled for Thursday, July 3rd at the Jessup's Community Center. You have time, 3 days to frame your questions so that you can get them all in next week, Thursday. Thank you once again for coming out.
Mark Brantley, Premier of the island of Nevis. We have put together a compilation of various projects done on this island over the last decade and a half. The idea is to showcase all that we've done in terms of our infrastructure, our business development, and the quality of life for our people. We welcome you home. Enjoy Nevis. This is your island. This is your home.
everyone, my name is Shalicia Glassford. I am a proud hospitality professional and I started my educational journey over at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant on St. Kitts. I then went over to Switzerland where I studied at the Cesarewitz Colleges and Washington State University, and just recently I completed my last certificate at the Le Roche Marbella, Spain campus. I'm so privileged and honored to have been able to study and work in so many different parts of the world. But one of the greatest joys that I have is to be able to hone that knowledge outside and bring it right here to my island, Nevis. Being able to impart my knowledge, my expertise, and my education to my peers and my colleagues every day makes me feel very proud that I'm really contributing